My name is Peter Kaplowski. This is the Toronto International Film Festival, and you're the best fucking audience in the world! And tonight, like all nights, we are on the traditional territory of the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. And we are goddamn grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. This film is also eligible for the Grolsch People's Choice Midnight Madness Award. One of 10 films take this prize. You have that power. The film plays an extra time at the end of the festival on Sunday. I still don't know what time that's going to be. I'm sorry. 3:50. 3:15, likely at the Lightbox. All right, what else do I have to say? I have to say a bunch of stuff because huge news happened today. Not only are we thanking GED Media for providing us with this film, we are thanking Amazon for providing us with this film. This film was just sold to Amazon. And what is this film? This film is a movie. I've never been to Sundance until last January. And I was in Park City and I was watching movies. And then I decided to go to a festival I had heard about, and I had always respected their programming. And every time I was putting a short film program together, I'd always look and see what would play at Slamdance, a small festival nestled within Park City at the same time that I was just so floored by their programming. I was so impressed with them. And I was standing in the hallway seeing what they were playing, and I got a ticket to Vast of Night. And as I was watching this movie, not even after, as I was watching this movie, I was sliding to the back of the room and furiously texting everyone in the genre community that was in Park City and said, "You are at the wrong screening. You need to come here and see this movie." It's one of my favorite debuts in a long time. And this is a year, too. I really, as a programmer for the Midnight section, I wanted to bring new voices. I've said this in interviews. I don't think genre cinema is generic. I think Midnight cinema is not about checking boxes, it's about adding boxes. It's about changing the formula, telling new stories. You've seen stories like this, you've never seen stories told like this. And so let's meet its maker. You're going to be hearing from him for a long time, Andrew Patterson!
I don't know that I deserve that. You guys have no idea who I am. And I know you don't know who I am because, I was working on this movie in total anonymity without any connection to the film industry, without any connection to festivals, without any connection to anything, hoping that one day I would throw this movie out into the void and somebody would say back, "We want to see it." And that started about 12 months ago. Sometime in September, we finished a cut that we thought was good. We threw it into Slamdance, and they came back and said, "Holy shit, we're in." And the thing I think I want you guys to know about this movie is from its earliest thought, 5 or 6 years ago, it was always supposed to be a movie that did two things. One was it took genre seriously, and it took it seriously in a way that you aren't used to maybe seeing. The characters and the performances and the story take a story like this seriously. And the second thing was for it to push the boundaries of storytelling somehow. And so we looked for ways to kind of blend things that maybe didn't necessarily always fit into the box of something that was sci-fi or something that was low budget or something that was a period film. And so hopefully all that amalgamation adds up to something, and you guys have a spectacular night. Enjoy it. This is the Vast of Night.
Thank you.
I would also like to add Bruce Davis, who played Billy off screen on that phone call. And two of our producers, Adam Dietrich and Melissa Kirkendall, please join the stage.
I think we should have the cinematographer up here as well.
Yeah, he was going to try to bail on me, but our cinematographer, Miguel Litton-Mintz, is here, and I'd like him to join us on the stage.
All right, so collect some questions. I am going to start this off with, usually in a sci-fi film, the special effects are the special effects. In a movie like this, though, the script and the performances are the special effect in many ways. This is my third time watching the film, and I find myself so transfixed by the performances and hanging on every word of the dialogue. How closely did you develop the screenplay with the writers and working with the actors? Because the characters are so vividly drawn, and I imagine a lot of it is scripted, but it's also so naturally conveyed.
Yeah, it was pretty close. There was a couple of guys that I'm close to, and we worked on it together, and then ultimately came up with kind of the game plan that we wanted to put a lot of limitations on it. As you can tell, the limitations are the point. Locked in here, staying with these characters there. Wanted it to feel like it could transcend mediums, like it could be a play or a podcast or a radio show or a book. And then ultimately kind of found these two and hung the whole movie on their performances. And Jake came out of New York. Yeah, please. They let me torture them for months ahead of time when I probably wasn't even allowed to try to get the performances where we wanted them.
Torture's a bit much.
What was the I imagine there must have been an extensive rehearsal process together.
Yeah, well, I mean, we came for like a week and a half before we started shooting, I think. Yeah, and we just hung out in hotel rooms with tape recorders and switchboards, and ran the whole screenplay like every day. Yeah. It was amazing.
What they're not saying is we actually literally moved switchboards into her room and tape recorders into his room.
Yeah.
And I told them they weren't going to get any favors from the editing in the film. So they had to be able to do it. And if you watch closely, he has a 5-minute scene where he threads up tapes one after the other. And she has a 10-minute scene where she actually runs a switchboard. Yeah. And so we wanted it to work.
Yeah, she does.
And considering the actors, though, at times are in separate locations or not even on screen ever, were they present for their conversations on set?
No. Bruce probably shot his stuff. I don't know. You can speak to that, Bruce.
I read the story. We went into the studio. I'm used to some voiceover work, but this was a lot different. This director really directed me for 6 hours straight. And by the end of the time in the studio, my voice was a little sore. But
that's like all. But that was the part I wanted.
Well, it was everything he wanted, though. Yeah, so
I didn't want him to sound fresh, so we only used like the last 5 minutes.
Right. So I didn't even meet him until after everything was done. So great director, great. You guys did wonderful.
I'm going to throw it to the audience soon, but I'm anticipating the question is going to be, how did you pull off the shot?
Well, there's about 4 of us here in the room. 2 of us are on stage, and there's 2 in the audience. And the bottom line is we pulled out every trick we could possibly pull out in the book, right? So I brought Miguel in maybe a month before we were shooting. And I said, so Miguel is a brilliant cinematographer, probably a little bit too big for my budget. In fact, grab the mic and chime in. So he agrees to come to Whitney, no man's land, Texas, right? And I show him, like, here's a half mile of, like, place we need to light. And it's a street, and it's a field, and it's a parking lot, and it's a gym, and then it's another field, and then it's other things, and then it's all, and by the way, we don't want to see any shadows whenever we're running the camera through it, and I've never done anything like this before, so show me how to do it. Okay, and then I'd done a little bit of work here and there in commercials and had some gear to play around with, including gimbals and so on, and we had a collaborator who's one of our executive producers who we decided to sacrifice his body and anything else. Marcus Ross, who literally, for real, laid himself out on a go-kart that we sourced from an 18-year-old farm boy locally there in Whitney, Texas, and he was our driver. And so we would do things like run it out of the switchboard room, and then we would run it down the street and connect it up to a guy on the fucking go-kart that was like on his belly, and then it was off to the races at 40 miles an hour, and then it was other handoffs, and then it was, build these lights in a way that whenever you pass underneath them, you don't have a shadow, of this go-kart and this camera system. It was, there's a little bit of things like, we had to hide things in trees, and that town doesn't look like it's from 1958 in the daylight. And so we actually had to go in and repaint things and move cars to where they hid things, and then kind of snaked it around, and then had this giant room full of about as many people here as you can imagine, and then had to have them doing their job, and then we kind of built it in a way that hopefully the reason you care about it is it's in the middle of a story that you're anticipating what's going to happen on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, one of the functions of the film to me is it really clearly establishes geography in a way that in a movie like this you don't often see the filmmakers be able to take that opportunity. Yeah. Was that very important to like?
It was hugely important. Yeah. I mean, I wanted you to know that she's here, everyone's over here, and he's there. Mm-hmm. And to build this, to raise the stakes that way, so that as the movie continues moving on down its, merry path towards alien invasion, whatever, you're kind of going, okay, this is maybe a little bit scarier because you realize there's nobody else that's going to experience this. So that was part of the point, yeah.
Questions in the audience, right there.
So, yeah, you stole my question about the shot, but thank you. But the other question I have then is, as far as the opening bit, like the fast talking, how much of that was precisely scripted? How much of that was improv?
Well, he did say it was pretty close.
It's almost exactly the script, like maybe a couple words here or there, but it's pretty much how I read it when I got the audition. It's crazy. Yeah, it's an amazing script.
Right there.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why the movie is framed with the television program, the kind of Twilight Zone as program that we kind of enter into and then revisit at points.
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat the question for the back of the room about why the film is framed by Paradox Theater, the television program.
Yeah, there's a real simple answer, and that is we knew everything we were doing in the movie was not original. I mean, blinking lights and sounds and blah, blah. I mean, look, if you take that away, all of a sudden, we start getting lobbed, and the critics start saying, oh, well, this is just the same, and it is the same story. It's just the abduction story. It's the story of somebody getting sucked up into space. And we wanted to take that and then go, we know what we're doing, we're gonna do it a little bit different way. And we wanted it to feel like anything from Night Gallery to Twilight Zone to X-Files to any crappy version of this story you see on cable any given night with bad reenactments and low production values, and we wanted to crawl into that and do something new. So it was a wink. It was definitely we're here with you, and we want it to feel like that.
I'm going to get someone from the balcony first, just because they often get ignored. Is there anyone up there with a hand in the air? If not, I'm going to go right down here. The question's about the lenses.
He wants me to. He's Chilean, and he's a fantastic DP. Like I said earlier, we were probably out of our budget to pull in, but he was ultimately.
Not true,
I
he
kind of
says.
sat at the feet of him and learned everything. It was super speeds. Zeiss super speeds, always at 1.3. It was 2000 ISO. And we would shoot with we shot with 6K Dragons, so it's digital, and then we ran a 16 millimeter film convert on top of that, so it kind of has that softer look. Good, thank you.
Right there.
I'm just curious, the initials for the radio station, WOTW, is that intentionally supposed to be War of the Worlds?
There are a lot of those in there. That's the most obvious one, but yeah, that was
Keep watching.
yeah.
The initials of the radio station for the people in the back, WOOTW, War of the Worlds. Right over there.
How many days do you guys shoot it in?
17. In fact,
17 days.
Yeah.
They shot that movie in 17 days.
Very quick. In fact, some of those night scenes where they're, you got a scene with her where she'll run, 25 pages of the movie in one take. That's the only way we were able to do the crazy stuff with the go-kart and everything else.
I feel on the subject of 17 days, I'm looking at the producers and going, like how?
That's probably where I came in quite a bit because I'm a line producer, UPM, and producer. And I mean, it was just major planning. First of all, Andrew showed up very prepared. He'd been prepping. He knew what he wanted to do, and it was very ambitious. And we talked about that probably in our first meeting, and we'd never worked together. And so I was like, all right, well, we'll figure it out. And we did. I mean, and it was a team effort of everybody just being extremely prepared. And of course, we had issues and problems, and things didn't work out, and we had to get creative like you always do, no matter what your budget is, but especially when you're independent and you're shooting in 3 weeks. So, yeah, it was hard, but it was pretty awesome. I mean, it was crazy because it was all night shooting on top of it, which is definitely not Melissa's favorite thing. Because somebody has to get up and like pay the bills every day, and so that kind of equals like not sleeping for me. But in a weird sort of a way, it helped us because the town that we're shooting in, that's a real town in Texas, a really small real town in Texas, and so we basically own that town. And when we did, like, they were great. They rolled out the red carpet, pretty much like the cops who we hired to, do street closures and stuff. But the whole town just rolled out the red carpet for us. And so if we needed like a shovel in the middle of the night, they were like, oh, we can go unlock such and such a store and borrow one. And when the cops are doing that for you, you're like, okay, it's on you. But it was that kind of thing. So it was also, in a weird sort of a way, we had our own town every night. Once it went dark, every day, once the sun set, it was like the town just became ours. And then it was no longer that town, it became Cayuga. And then we filmed all night. It was awesome.
And they helped us. I mean, in the town, we laid sand all across their downtown. So we covered every piece of pavement with sand. The chief of police helped us do that. Then he picked it up for us at the end. Chief Bentley, he's amazing. And they let me remove every single piece of modern anything from their downtown. So all of those store owners.
Adam is a production designer on the film too. So it's not just he did producing, but that's, yeah.
Thank you. All of those store owners, it's not a government thing. Each of those people had to make the choice to allow us to remove their stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of them gave us their keys, like Melissa was saying, so that when they're gone at night, we can go into their stores. Mm-hmm. So it was that kind of stuff. But going also back to Andrew's preparedness, and also that guy Marcus we mentioned earlier, and this guy Caleb Henry, who's another executive producer. These guys are amazing. Very early on, after I signed on to the project, Andrew calls me and he says, Adam, we got to get some practical light sources that are period appropriate. They need to be gigantic. They need to be things that would have been in the exteriors of locations. So we go out and we source, I don't know, maybe 30 lights, something like that. And Miguel's there, and we all kind of work together, me, Miguel, and Andrew, to pick these lights. And then Caleb and Marcus, and I think Nathan, I don't know, maybe just Caleb and Marcus, hang these lights during the off hours. So they start hanging them in pre-pro from a very, very early stage, but it's so much that they continue into production. And we've shot all day, and now these guys are working for another 2 to 4 hours to put this stuff up into the downtown area and other areas of the movie. So it's like the work never stopped for almost all of our team. Sierra's in her hotel on her off days working the switchboard. Just, every single person on the team kind of took above and beyond in that way.
There's a question right there. We only have time for a few more.
This film really did pay tribute to like 1950s sci-fi. So how much time and effort went into some of the costumes that we saw, some of the props we saw, to be able to capture that?
The question was about how the film paid tribute to 1950s sci-fi, but how much research and effort went into the period detail?
A lot of research and effort, specifically radios and switchboards. Those people are dying out that did that. So a whole lot of work went into making sure that it was period accurate down to the nth degree. And then we had a wonderful costume supervisor who went out for 6 months to every Goodwill, probably in Oklahoma and Texas, and bought everything. And literally our costume wardrobe shop looked like just a Goodwill. And then at a thrift store. And then we had those on standby, which is how we were able to fill a whole stadium of people. And then props and everything else was back to Adam at production design.
We didn't use any movies as references. We only used doc footage from the time, if there was any real, or magazines, yearbooks, that kind of thing. So we didn't use any other period movie to reference. It was all real archival material.
There, and then we're going to have to end it. Yes? There's a thank you to Kevin Durant?
There is a thank you to Kevin Durant. There is a very, very distinct tie to Kevin Durant. He doesn't know. He kind of does. I don't think he does. But my company worked in the NBA for a whole year before this. We'd done commercials. We're out of Oklahoma City, so we were doing Oklahoma City Thunder. It was our last season with Kevin Durant, which he left us, which I know you people can relate to that after this summer. Pretty brutal. It's pretty hard, but we were there first. So 3 years ago, he leaves us, and the whole time, my company's the one kind of trying, as several other groups, to keep him around. And we were in charge of all the media that played inside of the stadium and so on, cinematic type stuff. So we were using the same cameras and the same gimbals and so on. In fact, that's kind of how my camera crew came together for the Vast of Night. And so if Kevin Durant had been 100% happy in Oklahoma City, my company never would have gotten the job, and then the budget for the Vast of Night might not have been what it is. And so he has a very direct connection to why we're all sitting here tonight. So
Thank you, Kevin.
Right there. I mean, yeah. The question's about casting not just the main characters, but all the supporting characters throughout.
I'll try to answer that quickly because that was a really special part of it to me. It took us 5 or 6 months to find these two. Like, we saw 600 girls in the Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico area, and I just was like, no, they're not there. And then I was just about to call her Faye. Sierra, she is her own person. She and I, my casting director finally said, why don't you try this girl? And I was like, let me see what I can get. So she and I connected. We had a good phone call. Then she threw in her audition. I was like, this is going to be awesome. But I was still just sort of like, let me think about it. Let me have the weekend to figure it out. And then that night she texted me and said, I'm going to work harder for you than anybody else. I am Faye. I'm going to kill this role. And so
you were never supposed to mention that to anyone,
she
ever.
did. And it's literally the first message on my phone from her from about 3 years ago. And that I just thought, okay, this girl must know something. And I thought, if she's going to be willing to work that hard, I'm going to do it. And then Jake came after 200 or 300 guys auditioned in Texas, New Mexico, didn't find him, and I asked my casting director, let's go to New York, please. And the first person that came up out of 300 auditions was him. And I was sort of like, everyone was up to his standard. And what I saw in him was he had control that a lot of other guys didn't have. He could say his line and then just hold the screen and not have to do 15 things to fill that moment, because he does have to just sit there and listen to a phone call. And so once I got them together, you were asking about the charm, which I'm so glad you asked about that, because that can be fake if you don't really feel it. And there was a lot of times, some of the early dialogue, maybe of them hopping in the car and having a little banter, didn't work. And so I'd work with them on what was honest and what was going to be unique to their characters. And so after that, we populated the rest of the movie with all Texas and Oklahoma actors. Everybody in the rest of the movie is mostly from Texas. Bruce is from Oklahoma. He's from where I live. And so we worked with all of them to try to keep up with what I felt like we created with these two, so that it was one world. So I hope it worked. Thank you for asking that. Appreciate that.
Please put your hands together for the Vast of Night. And remember to vote. TIFF.net/vote. We'll see you tomorrow night for Takashi Miike. He's in Toronto. First Love.